You know, I decided from the beginning that I did not want to make a straight horror film because they're just not that interesting to me. And I think, you know, this is just my perception, but I think that Edgar Allan Poe is, in most people's minds, not just somebody that dealt with, you know, sadistic or horrific material, but who is a great literary figure. And when I hear the name Edgar Allan Poe, I think of great literature first. And then I think of, you know, dark subject matter, frightening, in some cases almost sacrilegious in a way, because he would delve into things that were like taboo. You don't talk about these things, but that's what I loved about it, because he was like, no, I'm going to dredge it all up, because in a way it's cathartic. You know, I believe in the concept of catharsis, that it's worthwhile for you in art to experience the very worst of tragedy and horror of what is possible in this life, because it makes it easier to deal with when it happens in your own life. It's like a rehearsal for it. I think that's a valuable thing. I think that's actually one of the things that art should do. So, at any rate, I think of him as a great literary figure, and in a way this leads also into my philosophy of filmmaking, because I come from a tradition, and that is that at USC Film School they really teach the Hollywood way of making movies from the standpoint that every single department has a responsibility. So that there's a certain way to light things that is the right way to light things. And when I say the right way, I mean you put a lot of thought into it. It's not that you just throw up a light, now it's lit, now it's done. No, you think about it, because how the use of shadows has a psychological effect on the audience. Everything has a psychological effect on the audience, including how everybody's dressed. You know, and what they did in Hollywood, and they invented it, was they made a department for every single aspect of what goes into a movie. You have a music department, you have a costume department, you have the makeup department, lighting department, cinematography, and the crews that handle the dollies and the staging of everything. And this, to me, is the right way to make a movie, because there are so many details that can contribute to making a movie as good as it can be, and of not leaving anything to chance. And I think of, you know, any great artist is very detail oriented to me. And so what I love about Edgar Allan Poe is his use of language is so brilliant, so careful, that if you pull out one or two words, it changes the effect of his story. It just isn't the same. And I feel like I can go back to the Telltale Heart on that, because you actually are made to feel exactly like the murderer in that story. When he talks about being nervous, it makes you nervous, because his use of language, it sounds like a person who's nervous. I'm nervous, nervous, nervous. You know, the way that he uses the words, there's a pacing to it. And so anyway, the idea being that his use of language is so particular and so elegant, it makes me think of the right way to make a movie in Edgar Allan Poe spirit. To me, is very careful. So the compositions that I tried to use in this movie are very deliberate. There's nothing accidental in the way the story is told, including the way that it's staged, the way that we used lighting, the way we use camera moves. It's all designed to have a certain kind of an impact when people watch it. And even the music in the movie, I found a great composer. And you know, when I was thinking about what I wanted the music to sound like in a movie, I thought of the great Hitchcock films and composers like Jerry Goldsmith, who did the music for Chinatown, and movies like this, where the music has a timeless quality to it. In other words, we have classical music from Mozart and Beethoven that is going to be listened to 400 years from now, as long as there's people here 400 years from now to listen to it, because it's that great. And that kind of a timelessness, I thought I wanted that sort of classical sound to the music in this movie, and I think we found a composer that did that very well.
Who was the composer?
Jason Solowski. And by the way, that's interesting. Jason Solowski is a guy who I found, he just submitted his material. He was interested in doing the music for the movie. And I heard it immediately and went, wow, this sounds about right. I mean, this, again, on an emotional level, I responded to the music. And I met him and only found out later he wanted to do it right away. As soon as he saw like the first half of the movie, he said, I want to do this movie. And I said, that's good. We're in a good position there. But his great uncle is Leonard Bernstein. And so his, great music is something that he was taught from very early on. He was classically trained from an early age, and I think you can tell when you hear the stuff that he comes up with.